What's going on? I gotta put
Hey,
my headphones on right. How you doing, man?
hey, man, it's good to be in the new year, man. How you doing?
Welcome back.
All
Well, the
right,
new year is we've been here since the new year, but we have been on hiatus for a little bit. How are you?
I'm good. And I mean, one thing happened that may
We'll
spell out
do,
the reason.
we'll deal with that later.
Okay.
I'm not even gonna tarnish. We have a great interview
All right.
tonight.
Well,
I'm gonna ride you. You know it's coming.
I wanted to set you up.
You know it's coming, and it's gonna come. You got to give me some time.
All right.
Yeah, I need a little bit extra time, but you're going to get it. But yeah, so I heard you've been going to the spa lately. You bring
Yeah.
some videos so we can see it.
Little self care, Nice. Listen, little foot treatment, right?
Yeah, foot
Get the,
treatment.
get the pedicure, and then a couple weeks later, got the head treatment, head massages, shoulder.
Wow,
All about wellness.
wow. Check you out. Can you next time you go? Can you take some videos so we can see you doing
I
this?
might be able to do that for
Just a
you,
little bit.
just a little.
Just let us see the inside, what it looks like when you go and have a spa day. I don't have spa days.
All right, I'll bring the camera next time.
All right, cool. So, so welcome back, everybody. Late Night Green interview series. We've got a great interview tonight. When you guys are wondering what it's like to make a break from the corporate world, and you want to move into the wild, wild west of the cannabis industry, we've got the guest who's going to tell us about how that happens tonight. You ready for that?
Yeah, I'd like to hear the blueprint.
I want to hear it too. I will tell you this. You always know, like when we had our pre-interview, and I'll introduce Devon in a second. When we had our pre-interview, I had to like say, all right, we should stop talking here because the story was getting good and we know the direction that we want to go in. So I think we're going to have a good one tonight. I'm excited.
Me as well.
All right. So welcome to the show, Devon Richardson. Welcome to the show, Devon.
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on. And the gear, guys, I love it. I
We
love the
don't usually,
hoodies.
hey, we don't usually wear the same thing on the same night, but this is what happens when there's no coordination.
I love it.
We'll
That
switch
means
it
you
up
guys are
next
in
time.
flow.
Yeah, well, we're in the
Well,
flow, all right. I'll
well,
tell you that. We're in the flow.
Phil has the game worn one on, so his is more valuable.
Yeah, yeah, there's carnage in this one. So, Devin, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Good. Well,
Just
everything looks good over there. You're looking good. So,
yeah, yeah.
you and I had the pleasure of meeting very recently. We have a mutual friend, and they put us in touch. And when you and I spoke, we really had a great conversation. And I kind of said, "Hey, we need to stop here and save it for the show." So I appreciate you doing that. But we kind of like I think the way we framed it, Devin, is that you have a really interesting story that I think is one that everybody wants to hear. So why don't you start us off with what you were doing prior to your
Yeah.
move into this space, and then we'll kind of work our way through that and kind of see how this transition went.
Sure, sure. So I was working in New York in corporate America, as corporate as you can get. I actually wrote a paper for medical cannabis when I was in college, so 2004, so way back in the day. And this was like 2015. I was actually working on a deal that was I was about to close. I was done with the trajectory of my career. I wanted to do something different, and I just saw all the moves, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to drop everything. I'm going to move to. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to jump in the industry. I truly believed in the medicinal value, and I was really about this opportunity. So I figured I'm pretty good at just jumping off a cliff and figuring it out on the way down or up. That's
we we do that too.
but so I just jumped to Denver. I didn't really know anything. I didn't know anyone, and just started putting the pieces together and figuring it out. And it's been a decade later, and I've worked across markets. I've probably not done everything in the industry, but I've done a lot in different capacities. There's supply chain companies. Yeah, and I've kind of made full circle. The whole goal was to get back to New York. I lived in Denver, LA, Chicago, and then got back to New York right before the pandemic to watch that market.
Well, slow down, slow down, Devin. There's so much in between that. That's all the good stuff. So let's
Yeah.
do this. When you made that first decision to go to Denver, I think that was like one of the big ones along the way, right? Like that was the transitional one. So tell me a
Oh yeah.
little bit, yeah, tell me a little bit about that time of your life and like I know what you said as far as what was driving you, but like what was it really like to have to make that decision and to pick up?
Well, it was, I had some personal stuff going on that gave me a little extra oomph to take a risk like that. But honestly, I was scared as shit.
Right.
I, I, I couldn't believe what I was doing. I was joking about it at first. I would tell people like, oh, I'm going to go to Denver and get into cannabis, right? Get into weed. And people were like, okay. And before I was even leaving New York, I had a couple months before I would get to Denver just to see family and kind of take a breather before I jumped in. It's interesting. Before I left Brooklyn, it was probably like a week or two before I left Brooklyn. At my local dive bar, I met this guy from Denver, and he had just moved to New York. He was working in cannabis, and he was like drilling me pretty heavy about the industry and what's the revenues and the tax situation. And at the time, I just really didn't know yet. And he was like, what are you going to do? And he was kind of, he's pushing me. And he said to me, he's like, they're going to eat you alive. They're going to eat you alive. And I'm a pretty tough girl. And of course, I brushed it off. But inside, I was like, shit, like, what am I getting myself into? So when I got to Denver, it was literally like, okay, who I knew one person. It was like a friend's ex-girlfriend. She introduced me to one person, and then that person told me about Denver Tech Startup Week, which was the first time they had their cannabis panel. And I researched everyone on the panel, and I essentially walked up to everyone at the end of the panel and I pitched them to give me 5 minutes. And what's interesting is the first person that sat with me, I met with him another day. His name was Zach Marburger, and he basically told me, he's like, Colorado, California, he's like, all of these markets are done. All of the opportunity is in the emerging markets. And he's like, and the second thing is you're just going to have to do everything you can in this industry to learn. There's no book. There's no one that's going to tell you what to do. You just have to really figure it
No,
out.
no manual, huh?
No manual. And a couple weeks later, I think it was maybe a couple weeks, a month later, he moved to Chicago to start a company called Cresco. So he is the CTO of Cresco, which was just fascinating through that journey of like the people you meet and
Wow,
then the
it
stories that
is.
they go on to do.
So
So
how did you
um,
spend those 5 minutes with those folks? What were you like? What did you do during those 5 minutes?
I like had a pitch ready. I was like, I mean, I was always in sales. So I essentially had a pitch of like, I've built my career in sales and like corporate sales. I'm from New York City. Like I had some pitch, and I said, I want to apply this into building companies in the cannabis space. What guidance, tips could you offer as I'm trying to find a company to work with? Um, Most people were pretty receptive. At the time. So, it's interesting. I met the Flow Hub team when they were just getting off the ground. I think they had probably under 10 people at the time. And then I landed a job with a cannabis marketing agency at the time,
So
which was just
that was
really,
job one, right? That was your first one out of
yeah,
there. Okay.
job one. Yeah. So it was a small team, but it was 2015. So you're getting like at that time, it's just you have so much interest in the industry. You have so much lack of traction in the sense of everyone's new, right? There's no benchmark, there's no standards. I mean, I jumped in, I didn't even know what CBD was at the time, and I'm pitching services and, I'm getting pitched these like companies that need marketing services and I don't even know like what their business is, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it was just interesting because everyone's learning at the same time, and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. Also dealing with the regulations, obviously, which was very challenging. You
Yeah.
know, to be honest, I'm very grateful I went to Denver before California, just because California is a behemoth. I mean,
Right.
you all know it's such a huge market, and
Well, the
the
people are different, the market's different, and it gives, I think Denver
culture.
was a better stop for you to make along the way before you got there for sure. And at the time you did it, that was probably the only other stop you could have made, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was. I mean, it's wild. There was only a couple markets that had legalization at the time, so
So
I
within
think maybe
Mark's,
that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, you're good. You're good.
So within that marketing job, what were you tasked with? What were some of the primary things that you worked on?
So I was head of business development. So my job was to bring in the new clients and pitch them, sell them services. I developed a team. So it was an interesting ride. I was with them for about a year. And then I actually started my own agency. And our first client was Tommy Chong. So we launched the Chong Choice brand in Colorado in 2016, which was fascinating because uh, Snoop had just launched. Willie, I think that was there. I might be missing one other celebrity, but anyways, it was fascinating to see
It's an
to work
exciting
with
time.
Tommy.
That's a
Yeah, it
super
was. It
exciting
was.
time.
Yeah, it was an exciting time, and it was awesome to work with Tommy. Just his background, obviously. I mean, he's a legend in the industry for decades. So it was great, and it was also like and I can't at the time. I guess this is for me. You're just learning so much about cultivation practices and what really good weed is, and it was just awesome. It really was.
So you made this bold move, right, from New York to Denver. You had the business development background, right, in the corporate world. And what
Yeah.
was that your angle at first when you get there? Hey, I know so many genres you can get into when it comes to the cannabis industry. Did you focus maybe on the business development end first, or you were just down for anything?
Yes, that's just what I knew, and I knew that was my strength. So I leaned into that because I knew I would not know what I was doing in any other way. So I just kind of leaned on my strength as much as possible. And I tried to be open. I mean, I was prepared to be a bud tender. Honestly, I was trying to take, Zach's advice. Um, you know, I was trying to take that on very seriously. Like I was down to do anything just to learn. So, um, and
That's
I think
awesome.
again, like yeah, the company I worked for was great just because I got so much exposure from
Yep.
different companies.
I'm sure
Um,
you made a lot of contacts prior to making that move to start your own thing. So tell us about starting up your own thing and some of the challenges. What were the highlights? What were the lowlights? Give us the down and dirty because we all want to know. It's not so
Starting,
glamorous all the time.
yeah, no,
I'm
it was
assuming.
another. I mean, I think it was another like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is scary, right? It wasn't exactly planned either, but I'll skip over those details for now. But it was kind of circumstance meets opportunity. You're also looking at, okay, do I fund this myself? At the time also, it's 2016, 17. Having a marketing agency in cannabis is tough because you're not exactly getting market rates for your services. It's marketing is one of those things that it's the last thing cannabis companies are finding a budget for because of 280E and all of that. Um, so even talking, I did take on investors for a period. They were traditional money people, so they did not understand cannabis at all, and that was a big challenge. Understanding, clients would run out of money. you can't put the word cannabis in your legal entity name because you won't get a bank account and you could get blacklisted from banks. Those types of things. It was
Those
definitely
little things, huh?
yeah. So, um, I think times have changed significantly, but it was challenging. It was hard to keep cash flow. I mean, ultimately, in 2017, I moved to California with my company I wanted to be in California ahead of adult use taking effect.
Hmm.
And, it wasn't a pleasant experience. I mean, I learned a ton. I worked with a large distributor out in California, and I was in 50 dispensaries easily in a couple of months from Northern to Southern California. I really started to understand that market and how different it was from Denver. Um, but it's just the volatility of that time. It just, my investors they could not stomach the industry. So we decided to part ways. And I saw where the industry was heading in California then, and it was not pretty. I thought it was going to take, in my mind, in 2017, I said, oh, this market has like 5 to 7 years to slightly stabilize. We've never seen it really stabilize. So I wasn't interested in digging my heels in California. My whole goal was to get back to New York, but of course, the East Coast was just taking its time, and with many. So I actually ended up in Chicago.
So Devin,
And
when you were,
so
let me interrupt you for a second, Devin. So when you were working, so your clients, so your agency was in Denver or was that in California?
it was I started it in Denver, and
Okay.
then I branched out to LA. So I moved to LA in 2017.
And so you were working with clients both in Colorado and California, I'm assuming.
Yeah, yeah, they were Colorado, California. There was a couple on the East Coast that, I think there was at least one in Maryland. I mean, Maryland was just coming online. So yeah, and it was across operators. Like one of our clients was a curing technology company. It was fascinating. So we worked with all different types of businesses.
Yeah, that's cool. So how long did how long did your agency go for? And when you say you got to California, was that obviously that was while you were still doing that? So did you move to California just to capitalize on the opportunity?
Yes, yeah. Moved out there, just again, kind of was interested in being aggressive with seeing the opportunity and just wanting to be in the room, right? Um, and there was just volatility when I got there. There was, I mean, again, these are much deeper stories, but there was a ton of volatility with clients, and it was challenging for sure. So, yeah, that's when my partners decided to pull out, I decided that it was probably in the best interest to pivot. And so that's what I did. And, I think I was looking back east to try to find other opportunities, which is when I landed in Chicago. And then I started working for a company called LeafLink. I was head of expansion there, and LeafLink is a cannabis marketplace. So they're essentially like the Amazon of cannabis between dispensary and producer. So
So tell yeah, so
my job
how
was,
yeah, tell I was just going to say tell us about your job there.
yeah, and this was between 2018 and 2021, I think. Fascinating experience. I loved it. My job was to track all of the new markets coming online, to understand the regulatory environments, to make sure it was a proper fit for our business. And then my job was to go in and gain adoption of the platform. So from Alaska to Puerto Rico into Canada, the Caribbean, that's what I was doing. And I was always on the road. I lived on an airplane. I opened over 15 markets for LeafLink, and it was fascinating. I mean, every single market is different, and every single market that opens is very different according to the regulations that are in place, how many licenses they're allowing, in which order they actually approve the licenses. Some states like Oklahoma did it completely backwards, but it's the
So
culture of cannabis in the market.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. It seems like the biggest part of the cannabis industry is the regulations, and it's a tough business.
That
I've,
shouldn't be the biggest part of it.
yeah, but where it's a difficult to get started in this industry. So, in fact, I just read an article about a gentleman who was in the industry, and it just got too much for him. You invest a lot of
Yep.
money, you spend a lot of
Mhm.
time, there's a lot of work, and then regulations change, and like you say, hey, the dispensary counts change. Hey, first they only allow five, now there's 10. The competition, and sometimes it takes a long time, before the rubber hits the road before you get going, and a lot of people can't make it to that. So, with your experience, where did you find that the most difficult states to get adult use going?
What are the most difficult states?
Yes.
Well, New York, I think, is just destroyed itself. I think there's many things that could have been uh, done differently. It's unfortunate because it was very devastating in for a long time with the hopes of participating in that market. But when I saw the illegal shops open at the rate of which they did, I already worked in LA. I worked in California. I already saw how challenging it was to sell amongst the illicit stores. And, I saw that perspective. I also saw, you know, California, when adult use hit, the taxation that changed significantly, which hurt a lot of companies, right? So you're looking at New York. I feel like I worked in all these markets and I saw the errors a lot along the way. And it felt like New York didn't take note of anyone else's path, right? They didn't take note of any of the lessons that other markets had to share. And they were, they've been laying the groundwork for the most equitable market in the country that they've hurt the most. And they didn't prepare them. They sold them a pipe dream. It's very sad.
Well,
So
I guess we're going to wrap up with the current state of affairs and maybe your thoughts on it. I think you've given us a preview of that. But when you were with LeafLink, I guess that was kind of at the time where there was kind of a real shift in how the old traditional wholesalers in the industry were kind of doing business. I think, you were in essence kind of a disruptor to that because I think when we're talking about like specifically like 2018, you started to see a downscaling with some of the big wholesalers in the market, and they weren't quite taking the space at the shows they were taking before, and some of them you don't even see around anymore at this point today. So what was your take on the disruption of the wholesale market at that time that you were involved?
well, I think I don't know about the disruption necessarily, but of people at the time, it was difficult if they had been visitors before. Converting over to the legal market was very challenging, right? There were to implement. There was just different ways of operating um, to make that transition. Um, I also think a lot of people didn't want to because they didn't want to have to deal with the taxes. They preferred to stay on the non-legal side, so to speak, because I thought that was um, I think, yeah, I think it's one of those things where you have to constantly change with
And it was
the way.
also like the ability to sell direct to retail. So, the direct store deliveries, being able to eliminate that middleman, so to speak, I think obviously had some of it technology, some of it was a disruptor, but interesting. So how did the rest of your Leaf Link as we travel on your journey, how did the rest of, where did that end and when did you move on?
Yeah, so I have expansion for a couple years. Then they launched the logistics business, so I was getting even more to the supply chain. We were doing secure transport between producer and dispensary as well, which was fascinating. Again, every single state is different. And I moved to another supply chain company called Backbone, which was essentially a system. Amazing company at the time, great team. But unfortunately, that company didn't make it financially within about a year. You know, I think sometimes companies they want to grow like a Silicon Valley company, and they forget to remember this, and the challenges are very different.
Yep.
And I think that scaling quickly it's the risk.
Well, people skip, like, at the end of the day, Devin, when you're talking about a gold rush, people skip steps. They want to get to the pot of gold as quick as possible. So I think you see a lot of mismanaged situations. I think you see a lot of startups that come and they go real quick. And so it does take a lot of planning. I think it takes a tremendous amount of hard work, and not everybody's going to win this battle.
Yeah, you need business acumen.
Yeah.
Just puffing weed is not going to do
sure.
it.
Yeah, it's either that or the other extreme of, the corporate success doesn't necessarily apply to cannabis.
True.
It's almost like meeting in the middle. It's still having to somewhere in the middle. But you can't necessarily, you can't just scale that fast sometimes. I think it's
well, listen, and when even if you're not in the cannabis space, the rate in which you scale can dictate whether you're going to be successful or be completely bust broke and out of business. I mean, too much business that you don't manage is just as bad as not having any business at all. It can lead to the same outcome. And so, yeah, it's a great lesson. So here's what we're going to do, Devin. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to pick up from your journey here along the way. So we know there's more. All right. So, all right. So we will be back right after this.
So many dispensaries have resorted to a bland, impersonal shopping experience, where you often don't even get to see a sample of the cannabis you're planning on purchasing before you buy it. If you're looking for that extra personal touch, come check out High Roller Dispensary in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Our staff are avid cannabis connoisseurs who are sure to help you find the strains that fit you best. Whether you're looking for premium flower, edibles, concentrates, or tinctures, we have you covered with over 100 different strains to choose from, all of which are able to be seen, smelled, and thoroughly examined in our elegant showroom. If you're in a rush, we offer a seamless online ordering system that allows for in-depth exploration of all that we have to offer. So whether you're a novice or a seasoned stoner, be sure to stop by High Roller Dispensary and we'll make sure you're floating on Cloud 9 by the time you leave.
I'm Rob Cantrell, and you're watching Cough Country TV. Right here, right now. This is it. You're watching it. Cough Country. You're in this country, cough it up. Cough it up for Cough Country TV. Right here, right now, on the internet and beyond. Media, television, pizza, weed, legalized.
Right around here, 15 inches, maybe if you're younger, you go up to 19 inches, Yeah, you already went the big age.
Sometimes a CIO might make commitments to a CEO that they just can't fulfill. And it's very hard to succeed in those environments. You really want to be able to set the expectation right up front.
How would you feel with no sex, no weed for a month or two? I'm going to be really angry.
Just feel sorry for Jake.
Yeah, Jake's going to get fucked up.
Wow, this is
Phil. Yeah, for
this is all you. This is the Cough Country OG pink hoodie.
No, our motto is when they go low, we get high.
Cannabis, and we are back. What's going on? Hey, our commercial sounds like a commercial for a porno, man. We got to fix that.
Let's not pivot there.
Oh no, because we're in the middle of a story that we have to keep doing here. We're doing good. Welcome back, Devon. How are you? I know you're doing good. All right. So let's pick up where we left off, because I know that you then dipped your foot back into. Did your business stop and then you restarted again, or did it?
Yeah. So at this point, so now we're in 2019. I'm back in New York. Well, I'm still at LeafLink. I did, because I moved all around the country. So I moved back to New York right before the pandemic. With the goal of just, wanting to participate. I saw that things were starting to move along. Started working at Backbone. On the side, I also was putting a team together because I wanted to pursue a manufacturing license. So that was kind of being developed. But like I said before, after the bill passed, you kind of just saw what was taking place with the illicit shops. And I've lived the pain, and, I told my team, I said, I don't think this market I'm just not interested in that level of pain. It was unfortunate. So, to be honest, then Backbone went under, and I was exhausted, to your point earlier with one of your friends or someone you spoke to about, they just couldn't do it anymore. That's where I was. I'd spent almost a decade. I had taken some serious financial hits. A great experience. I learned so much. And I didn't know where to go from there, right? I had seen every market take the typical cycle, right? I just didn't know where the US is going to go. I went to Cannabis out in Spain. I was like, Europe, show me something.
I love that name.
Yeah.
I love that name.
An amazing conference. I met some awesome people, had a great time, but they're struggling as well. What?
I was just telling Todd we got to go to that Cannabis.
Yeah.
How are the buds out there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and also there was different cannabinoids that I started to hear about out there, and then I came back here and I started hearing more about them, like CBC. So it was interesting. Like everyone, and I think for me, I love cannabis. I love the science. I geek out. I've worked with a ton of people. I mean, that's how I know the friend that introduced us, right? Like,
right.
I know a ton of people in production that have been either, messing around with concentrates in garages, or, they've been doing this for a long time, and the science behind it is incredible to me. Yeah. When I started to really understand the beauty behind strains, and being able to, Harlequin was the first time I had a strain where I was like, oh my God, this was life-changing, and I love it and I believe in it. It's just the business aspect with the regulations that just sucks, right? It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to make money. It's hard to survive.
It's just, it's completely over-regulated. It's, there's a lot of things. And again, these are things that happen in an infancy of an industry. These are growing pains that we're going to go through, and it's going to chew through a lot of people before we get to the promised land.
Yeah, exactly. You got to have persevere. Yeah. The first time I went to Colorado 10 years ago.
Talking to the mic.
Colorado's big, and everything's going on. We go to the stores, right? We get our buds, but then the tax they hit on us, right? The bud was already a high price, then the tax. Mm-hmm. So it was, all of a sudden it took some of the fun out of it, right? And then that's what caused the competition. The black market is still there. You can get it for half the price from your friend around the corner instead of going to the dispensaries. But after a while, the prices go down and dispensary prices get competitive.
After a certain period of time, you see that, but it doesn't eliminate the black market, even in those well-priced markets. Like,
right, it doesn't eliminate. It's still going to be that competition there.
Like Michigan, So anyway, so So you had a decision to make that you made with your team. Tell us, yeah. So what happened there? I know it's
Yes. So,
a big
so
one.
I decided to step away, right? I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not, it's just going to be so painful. Um, and, I think Backbone had gone under too. So I was left in a situation where I was like, all right, what now? Right. And I think this is now 2022. It was I don't know if you remember, but the beginning of 2022, we saw a serious downturn in the industry. And it was tough. It was tough to find, tough finding a job. So I started up my consulting again, and, I was getting a couple clients, but it was challenging, right?
Yeah, it's hard.
It's like, I think at this time, you also know what's under the hood of so many companies. And it's
It
just,
was exhausting,
it's
right? I could
exhausting.
tell, like I can just tell it was an exhausting process because at every turn you're facing like you just walked all the way around one mountain and as soon as you get there there's another one right in
Yeah.
front of you. And so, it's not for the lighthearted. None of this is for the lighthearted, any of this. So we
Right.
get
So,
we get that.
yeah. So literally, I was like, I'm out. I'm out. I don't know where to go. I don't know. I think I'm done. And at that moment, which always happens with people when you are just about to throw in everything, the universe provides. I don't know any other way to say it, right? So I met someone who reinstilled faith in humanity for me.
That's awesome.
It was an amazing opportunity.
I like how you attributed
Uh,
that to the universe and not to like manifestation or anything. It's just
well,
that.
but it could have been a little bit of both, right? So,
Right. Right.
but it was, I don't know. I guess it's like just one of those periods where you're just like, I don't know. You don't have anything else to give, and the universe is like, all right, fine, here.
Here's
But it
your
was
bone.
one of those. Yeah, right. And it was weird, right? Like the woman that I'm now working with, her daughter has the first name of me. We have a lot of different things in common. Our last names are damn near the same. Um, we both have a middle plate in our left arm, like weird stuff like that. And she's a person of strong moral character and values, and she's tough. She's one of the toughest women I've ever met. And she wanted to build a company, and she, entrusted me. She has a lot of faith in me, and that's, what we're doing. She did want to pursue New York, right? So, we did, we were capitalized enough to pursue that. So, we did, but it just really, it still wasn't working. It's like we were sitting in the application queue for so long. I'm like, this just,
And you were in New
I don't
York.
know what we're fighting.
You were back in New York at this point, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I pulled the application because I'm like, what are we fighting for? You're watching the market open. It's just a disaster. We're trying to work with people in the market, essentially to launch a brand. It was wild, and it was chaotic, and it just, again, it's time to pivot again. So then we were looking at other markets that we could potentially pursue. Maryland was going through another licensing round, and I really like Maryland. I think Maryland's a very, stable market considering. But of course, that in that round of licensing, it was very difficult to partner with a group because of the way they wrote the regulations. So, we decided to step back from that market as well. And in the back of my mind, I was hearing about hemp and, the Delta 9 products that we're rolling out and the opportunity there. And, I'm a cannabis person, right? So, and I think this is still true amongst a lot of people. Like, the perspective is I don't touch that, right? It's like, no, we're marijuana people, that's what we do.
Right.
And you're like, but then I started to really look into it. I went to a conference in Minnesota. I, visited a restaurant. If you ever get a chance to go to a restaurant that's selling cannabis beverages, it's amazing. I totally support it. It was an incredible experience. But first and foremost, it was awesome. I saw the opportunity, and beverages are notoriously the lowest performing form factor in marijuana in the dispensary world, and it's the fastest growing segment on the hemp side. So, I liked the opportunity. It was, you can act like a normal business, right? I mean, you still have a ton of issues. Don't get me wrong.
But half of
But
them
it was
but half of them are gone right out of the bat. At least half of them, probably.
half of what?
Half of the issues that you had on one side are pretty much
Oh,
gone
yeah.
when you make
Oh,
this
yeah.
decision.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I
Yeah.
mean, the fact that you can move across state lines, you can
That
sell direct to consumer.
that alone.
It's a game changer.
That
It's like
alone.
it's a no-brainer, right? So
It's a
I
window
think
to, it's actually, Devin, it's a preview into what it's going to look like when deregulation occurs and we can start doing business across state lines, which is really what's going to move everything forward. And the success on the hemp side is really nothing but a preview really of that. And I'm surprised people in positions of making decisions aren't really paying attention to that as much as they should.
So mentally, how tough was that for you to go from the cannabis world to the hemp world? Like, was that
honestly,
going back and forth in your head?
It wasn't. I know it was. So it was like at first, because I had been looking at it like a little bit in the background for a while, but I think it was just, I had another uphill battle when Maryland didn't. Yeah. When I didn't see an opportunity with Maryland, I was just like, I'm so frustrated.
Was Jersey
and it was
an
almost
option
like,
at that point, or was it New York or bust, or was Jersey a possibility?
Jersey
was it
Jersey
too early?
Still
too early.
It was too early, and it was. I think I don't think the application period. I forget why we just didn't pursue New Jersey, but it's our head of product. My head of product. He actually had a little bit longer of a transition mentally, I think, because he was definitely on that side too. He's like, I don't know. I think we could still do marijuana, and but he came around in the sense of seeing the opportunity and being able to, because I think ultimately our goal was to build a company, a value-based company, and really bring great products to market. And that's still possible on the hemp side. It just may look a little different, right? Like you can't do awesome flower I mean, I guess that's a whole debatable conversation there.
What did you launch with? What did it look like in the early?
So we're working on it now. Yeah, we're working on them now. The brand's called Lorea, and it's a functional beverage line. So we're focused on cannabinoid blends, adaptogens, botanicals, just very intentional ingredients to help you design of mind, so to speak. So our whole team, like our founder, she's an ultra marathon runner. She's running a 200-mile marathon on her 60th birthday. Incredibly wild. Our head of product was a rugby guy. I'm just a natural athlete, but I struggle at.
He's natural.
I struggle at. I still struggle. I do what I can, but we're very into to optimize our health, and so does things along those lines. So we wanted to create products for people that are into that stuff, right? So the different functions are energy, focus, happy, and sleep. And we want to blend, people are, it's like the cannabinoids that are out there, it's still new to a lot of people, right? So we want to help educate people on the beauty of CBG, THCV, CBN, right? It's not just THC. So, it's exciting. And we're
how'd you guys deal with how'd you deal with the sugar issue? Did you use sugar in the drinks, or how did you deal with that?
So we're not, I don't believe we're still working on formulation right now, but we're not adding sugar. We're low. We're going to, I can't say that for sure, but I don't think we will be. Very low sugar. I think everything is under 9 grams of sugar, I believe. Yeah, so I'm learning a lot about developing beverage formulations, and it is hard. It is difficult, and we're doing four, right? So, in the beginning we're like, oh, we're gonna do four of these different functions, and then you realize you're doing something. I'm always choosing the hardest path forward. My father told me, and he would tell therapists, he's like, Devon doesn't choose the path that's less traveled. She chooses the path where there's no clear visible sign of possibly
They
getting
call
through.
that the
So
path of most resistance.
Yeah. So
yeah.
you were born a rebel, huh?
She goes the path of the most resistance. So
Right.
so where are we
Right.
where are we today in the journey? You're still formulating? Are we selling? Are we pre-sales? Where are we in at this point?
So we're in formulation mode. So we wrapped formulation recently with one group, and we decided to take it a little bit further with another group. We're hopefully finishing formulation by the end of March, and we'll be getting to market by early June. So um, I'm very excited.
We're
Right now,
excited
we're
for
also
you.
looking at. Thank you. And we're looking at the states that we want to launch in, which is honestly the regulatory environment on the hemp side is really, really tough as well. I mean, things are changing all the time. I mean, we have the farm bill, obviously that's in queue. I don't. This is my perspective. I don't see much movement happening there anytime soon, and I don't think this administration is. I don't
Well,
know if
let me
that's
ask you
really a
this:
priority.
what do you know about the lobby? Is there a lobby put together for the on
Yes,
the?
yes.
I'm sure there is lobbies put together on the hemp side,
So
and I'm sure they're
absolutely.
and now they're probably stronger than they were when they put this back together the first time in what 17 was the first farm bill.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're supporting the Hemp Beverage Association and the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Um, I think that the HBA has a lot of focus on the local levels, and the U.S. Hemp Roundtable. I mean, they're both working together, but the U.S. Hemp Roundtable has also a focus on the federal level. Um, but yeah, there's a lot. I mean, every state is, there's people proposing bills to ban hemp products, hemp beverages. There's milligram caps. There's a ton of moving parts that change every single day. So it's definitely still a very hard space to operate in.
Yeah, for the drink product, you find that being heavily market. Are you going to market that to like recreational states? And where's the fit for that?
Yeah. I think our focus is on the Southeast. So Florida is going to be a huge market. We're also looking at South Carolina. And I am heading out to Chicago for the National Restaurant Association conference. I think that's what it's called. Chicago is very interesting to me, Illinois. It's kind of fascinating. It's like you have to really go to the state. I mean, I feel this way about everything just because that's how my career has been, is that you have to be in the state to really see what's going on. You have to see the culture in the sense of how people are shopping, and if there are no regulations, what does that mean, right? Is what how are retail shops purchasing, right? And it's different, and that's some of the things that our team is focused on understanding right now. So um, the Southeast is very exciting, but there's also some scary moves. I mean, you saw California just outright ban it a couple of months ago, and then Texas has a very robust hemp market, but there's some strong political opposition that could change pretty quickly as well. So
It's a good point you make. It's something you and I talked about when we were chatting on the phone, but there is some risk, right? There's risk in anything that we do, right? But there is some risk with what's going on. There's some pending new legislation. There's what you just mentioned in California. I'm assuming that is not probable, but could happen in other places. What's your plan? Is there a plan to pivot back to cannabis if hemp disappoints you or disappoints the market?
I say we shall see what happens, because ultimately I don't think I have the energy anymore. I mean, it's the reality is that beverage has shown to fail in the dispensary model. So it's hard to say, right? If we're pushed to the dispensary model again, what do those regulations look like? Can we cross state lines? Are they going to, are they going to limit us on a state by state basis again? It just really depends. I've made comments to the team, we do want to create a non-cannabinoid beverage as well. And it just depends at the time. There's so many moving pieces to consider. And we'll just have to see.
No, I get it. So you mentioned New York earlier, and Todd asked you, like, what's the most difficult state? I think it's probably the one you're in right now. Where do you see the whole New York thing going? Well, and I want to talk about anything that's like what's some of the things that you're going to expect, some of the things coming up in the near future for your brand. And earlier I was going to say, if you need Todd and I to test any of this stuff out, we would be more than happy to help you with these formulations. He's a connoisseur of anything and everything. But so what do you think is going to happen in New York? Because it seems like they've recognized the fact that they have a shit show, and they're making attempts to do it, but the lawlessness of this program in the state just allows for it to continue. So they continue to shut down illegal dispensaries, they continue to pop up, and now I'm assuming there's a plethora of retail places. I'm positive of hemp products. There's probably every corner store. So what do you see as New York's fate in this whole thing?
I compare it to California, right? I think California is still struggling. I think I read an article yesterday that the illicit market is, I think it said, I could be wrong, triple, if not double, the size of the legal market, right? So they still have, it's almost like the problem still exists, right, from that standpoint. The taxation has, they've never been able to stabilize, and I think New York is looking at a similar future. There was an article that came out yesterday, I think it was in the New York Times, that Hochul, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but they had proposed a $200 million fund to grant to social equity applicants. And the state of New York put in 50 million, right? And they were supposed to receive the money back from licensing fees, right? And I'm being very general, obviously, but Hochul is now trying to get the funds back, right? And there's a ton of issues with the fund. It's predatory. It's requiring people to take on a ton of debt at a high interest. It's like, why would you do it? Why would you do it? But the illicit shops are still there. The bodegas are still selling. I don't know how you change the situation unless you invite them into the room, right? Yep. And I think I've talked about this a number of times with people. A possible route is, okay, you give everyone a license, like a liquor license, and you tax everyone. And, I don't know if this is an accurate statement, but it's just an idea. Like, okay, if you want to prioritize social equity, drop their tax rates, give them free taxes for a number of years. Free taxes is excessive, but maybe lower them significantly, figure out creative ways to give them a leg up while you still have an opportunity to drive revenue from other places that are already selling it. And you're the ones who opened the door in the first place, right? That's right. How do you solve this problem? But I don't know if you have, I don't know. I don't see how they make the decisions to put people in a better position. It's just going to be a very long road ahead.
And once you let something go so far, it's really hard to reel it back in. And it's gone so far in the other direction, like in the wrong direction. So reeling something like that in versus a an organized, planned rollout that makes sense, that that you had a plan for, you thought about ahead of time. It's tough. I don't know how you reel that in.
Yeah, machine is rolling.
I don't know. It's unfortunate. I sometimes feel like people don't think about things through enough, right? They're so focused on getting the bill passed, but then what?
Yeah.
And I understand, and look, it's politics. I'm oversimplifying something incredibly complex, but it was just astounding to me, the lack of plan that was in place once the bill passed, and the promises that were made from the state that people unfortunately got burned by. I think, I don't know if you saw, but during the initial rollout, you had farmers at city hall meetings or, commission meetings where they're suicidal, they're losing everything. You have people saying they put their kids' college funds into their dispensary license and they're losing everything that they have. And it's just, and it's like,
rough.
People that have worked in other markets could have been like, I could have told you this would have, like, what are you doing? Like, it's just.
Well, I think like one of the things that you said is that you love New York, and you had a kind of the goal from when you left is to get back, right? You almost from you seemed to, in our conversation, from day one you wanted to go back. So, you've got a vested interest in wanting to participate in that particular state's program, and so for that reason, when we spoke, I have some mixed thoughts on hemp, just probably like you did in the beginning. And I'm, at Cough Country and Cough Country TV, we're everything about cannabis and hemp. So there's nothing about hemp that we're not about. But me personally, obviously I'm much more interested, and I think for me, cannabis is better for me, but that's not to diminish. I think
it's different for everyone.
Right.
I'll smoke the cannabis and I'll wear the hemp. How about that?
You're lucky my soundboard's not working, because there's a stupid button that I would just press for that.
No, you drink the hemp. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Get it right, man. Drink the hemp. But I think, Devin, I think what it does do is the hemp thing has opened the door to a lot of people that wouldn't have had an opportunity to try this or become aware of it. So I think from a public relations perspective, it's really good. So I think now that I've heard the whole story, I like what you've done. You've made specifically with the fact that there's your presence in New York, and I think that's the way to move forward. You've made a much better decision than to fight a battle that I don't necessarily think anyone can win, to be honest with you.
And I think there is a place for everyone. There's a place for hemp and cannabis. I mean, obviously we don't have a magic ball to see into the future, but there's the low dose conversation and the high dose conversation, right? And I think the dispensary model is tough because when people go in, they're looking at products that they're trying to get the cheapest buck per milligram. And I mean, it still exists on the hemp side, but lower dose products typically perform significantly better on the hemp side. And, I think that's even how the markets are starting to try to regulate. You see more milligrams capped, or product milligram caps at like 5 milligrams. That's what I'm seeing as kind of the standard and what people are trying to.
And here's let me give you a story. So I was just up at the whole Cough Country compound in Maine, and one of my buddies that were there went to the local grocery store and came back with, there were 4-packs. There must have been 6 4-packs, maybe 5 or 6 4-packs, all different flavor hemp infused beverages. And he's popping them open. He's loving it. He goes, these taste delicious. And for somebody who doesn't smoke or regularly smoke, that drink did him beautifully. You do a couple of those, and it's a beautiful thing. Here's my problem. I could have drank all 24 of them, to be honest with you, and then maybe, just maybe, I would feel something. So, what's the deal with the? How do we doing? Are we doing higher doses on the hemp side? What's the deal with that?
So, our company is not, and typically what we're seeing on the hemp side is no. I mean, I think in Minnesota, there are definitely people doing it for sure. But I think that is, if we're going to frame the industry from a regulatory standpoint, that's when you would go to the dispensary. You want, your higher milligram dose product, you get it in a different place. But, I think maybe
what is that? What place is that? So I know.
Phil, we can't help you.
Like I'm saying,
we can't help you, Phil.
Where do I find it? I just need to know.
So I think it's a better place on the marijuana side, to be honest. So
there's an application for these products, and it's not for everybody, and it's not for every situation, but the bulk of the popularity is with people who are experimenting, and sometimes they're new to this. I'm sure the age demographics in this drink space is probably on the younger side. And listen, I'm all for it. I think it's great. I'm happy for you. I'm glad you're doing this. We would love to test some of this stuff out. And you're not that far away, Devon. We could get you in the studio here, right? Come and hang out on the Cough Country TV studios.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to. And I prefer. My preferred consumption method is a joint. Like a flower is my preferred method all day. But
you'll work well.
I do enjoy drinking.
Well,
yeah,
you
I
get
do
along
enjoy.
How about bong hits or dabs? You into those? That's my Jimmy Jam.
I haven't not too much on the bong side. It reminds me too much of high school. I don't know.
Well,
but honestly, it's weird. It's like, again, going back to the culture of cannabis. When I moved to Denver, for some reason, every time I went to someone's house, they were offering me a bong hit. I'm like, is that what everyone does?
Yeah, you know what? That seems a little youngish. But
does it? No,
yeah, but
it's not a young thing. It's just for me, my memories. It's not. I'm not.
It was her. No. But you're right. I mean, it does bring back the younger memories, but it also makes those of us who maybe have not grown out of that stage feel a little bad, perhaps. I don't know.
I don't mean to, that is not trying to be offensive at all.
It's none taken, Devon. We love you. None taken at all. So as we wrap things up here, what should everyone be looking out for? How can they support what you're doing? Where can they find you? Give us some information about how we can support Devon and your project.
Yeah. Our website is loreabrands.com. It's not up yet, but it will be. Our Instagram is Lorea_brands. That is up. And stay tuned.
Spell it for us. We'll put it up on the screen.
Yeah, sure. It's LOREA. And
Gotcha.
We are going to be putting a lot of energy in marketing and getting out and just being with people and activations. And we really are a lifestyle brand. So we are going to be seen around, that's for sure. And we really look forward to it.
Right on. So guys, if you are in the marketplace for learning more about the beverages and things that Devon is doing with Lorea, I would highly recommend that you check out her website. I'm assuming they can sign up for information, maybe get on the newsletter, perhaps. And then as new things happen, you put that information out, they're going to find out. We want to do what we can at Cough Country TV to support you as well. So, you and I will talk more afterwards. And see what we can do to, make sure we talk up the brand. is there any, like, give me your last thought. And I hope you enjoyed sitting down with us, because we enjoyed having you.
That was actually, this was great. You guys asked great questions. It was an awesome conversation. You guys have a great vibe. Like, this was great. I think you should do this more. I know you guys took a hiatus, but it's time to ramp up.
It is time to ramp up.
Go.
And so, the show's relatively new, Devon, and we just recently, over the last few months, got started. We did have to take the last few months because we were doing some behind the scenes organization and some adding people to the team and just kind of getting it to the point where we can be consistent. We're not doing a late night show tonight, but we will be starting to do those next week. So yes, we appreciate those words of kindness and wisdom and encouragement, and we will take you up on that. Todd, last word for you before we thank Devon.
Hey, well, just want to say thanks for coming, but we appreciate you and your information. It's very insightful, and we would love to see you back.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back.
Thank
And
you.
guys, if being in the cannabis space, like any other new industry, is a journey. It has its ups, it has its downs. It is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. You got to put your time into it, and you got to work really hard. And so I can see that you have already done that, and so you've put a lot of your time in. So I believe that this is going to go well. I'm really excited for you, Devon. We do look forward to having you in the studio here, so we'll definitely be seeing you again. And yeah, guys, if you haven't subscribed, tell a friend, subscribe, give us a comment, give us a like. We're trying to grow this thing, so any help that we can get is help that we would accept. And so with that, Todd, we are out of here, brother.
Yeah.
Next time, I'm going to give it to you. You're going to hear about it.
I tried to give you opportunity.
Well, I'm not. I wasn't going to do this on Devon's interview. This is for late night.
Next time.
And listen, we're not having late night because this guy's got to leave. I just want to tell you that. That's the reason it's happening.
Spa session? Spa session?
No spa tonight. Let's just say he's getting old. Let's just say that. How's that? Devon, thank you guys, and check us out on Tuesday next week. Peace. Be good.
We
Bye.
See you guys.